This meeting is being recorded.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Next Perfect Step, where all possibilities lie in conversation. I'm your co-host, Lori Mullen.
I'm your co-host, Kim McStay.
And I'm your co-host, Lori Tremblay. Welcome to this episode of The Next Perfect Step. We're so excited to have a returning guest, Melanie Stevens. She's a spiritual teacher and has lots of gifts to offer. She's coming to us from the UK, and her last podcast episode with her was really well received. So we're excited that you're back with us, Melanie. And today's topic is an exciting one. I think it's something that we're all interested in, and we're going to dive right into Ascension and how its symptoms are affecting us and what we can expect. So, Melanie, please tell us more about yourself, and let's get our conversation started.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for inviting me back on the show. It's lovely to be back. Yes, I'm Melanie. I'm a spiritual teacher and I live in a lovely part of the UK called Devon. I'm by the sea. I'm also by the moor. So I have countryside and sea and everything around me. It's absolutely beautiful. I'm here today to have the exciting discussion around the Ascension and what that means and how it feels and some of the things that people might be experiencing, some things that might be a bit strange. So I think it's a really good topic to have.
Definitely. So what are types of things are you noticing for yourself in the Ascension? And maybe you can explain for those readers or listeners that don't know what Ascension is, maybe you can explain what that means.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's people describe it in different ways, and it's sometimes difficult to put it into words, but how I would describe it, and I keep calling it a quickening. Everything's like quickening and speeding up. And obviously to ascend means to increase and to go up. And what that really means is our vibration as humans is increasing. The vibration of the planet herself is increasing, and all living things on the planet. And this hasn't ever happened before, not on this planet. I do understand it's happened in other parts of the universe, but it's never happened before like this on the planet where everyone is ascending all at once. So there's a lot of excitement on the planet and outside the planet about this time. And us personally ascending as individuals means our vibration is going up. And with that comes many exciting things and some challenges, as with any big change. So how I'm noticing the change within me, and I'm hearing other people say the same, is that lots of things are coming up for release. So just as we might do healing work, we might do shadow work, like we've talked about before, can be quite a painful process. Old memories can come to the surface for release. Old pains, physical pains can resurface, old traumas, weird dreams, things you think, gosh, why am I thinking about that awful thing that happened years ago? Whilst we are increasing our vibration, anything that isn't in alignment with that needs to be released. So it's a bit of a tumultuous time as a planet, as individuals, as we shift and change through the ascension. But in amongst these periods of deep healing, there are moments of clarity around our true nature. There's moments where we just feel connected to the soul a lot more and sort of step almost back behind the ego, and we sort of witness the thoughts that we have and the movements we make and the things we do as a human, almost like we're a separate person observing that human, which is a little bit disconcerting when that kind of thing first happens, but equally it's very exciting because what we're doing is actually reconnecting to our true nature, which is of the soul. And we're experiencing life as a multidimensional being, not just a human being. So that experience is absolutely wonderful. And certainly that's something I'm experiencing more, where I'm just sort of stepped back from the human Mel, kind of witnessing what she's doing, but with this peaceful, confident, calm, still awareness that is actually my true nature. It's actually who I really am. So I'd love to know if other people are feeling that as well.
Yeah, I know for myself, stepping back and being the observer, I think is so incredibly powerful because it does allow you to go into that state of peacefulness where you can see what's going on around you, but not necessarily participate in all the chaotic aspects of it. So I'm glad that you said that because I do experience that. So it's nice to know that other people do as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think sharing some of these experiences is important so that we don't feel like we're going crazy, because for people who are spiritually aware, we understand why we feel like that. So when the feeling comes in, it kind of makes sense. But to somebody not really spiritual, that could feel quite uncomfortable. It could feel scary. It might bring up some fear. So I think by sharing that and other experiences, it's really important for people.
Been feeling, like you said, very peaceful and calm, more so than, in past years. And I just feel like it's more of a flow. And I'm feeling more relaxed. And I notice all kinds of synchronicities, of course, the numbers, the time, it used to happen once in a while, but now it's every day, like 11:11, 10:10. And I'll just, every time I look, there's the numbers. And I'm just like, all right, I know that our team is around us, our non-physical team, as well as such support that they're giving us. And I see, we hear a lot of messages about, we're cheering you on, and you're going to do it. So I feel really supported and grateful for that. And that we're all doing this together. And this is exciting too. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I love the feeling, because we've always been supported by our team, but we aren't always aware. And they've really stepped forward for me this last, I would say the last 12 months, particularly the last 6, this year in a much bigger way. And I'm having conversations constantly, and they'll flash the lights for me. They'll make noises happen within the house. So they'll answer me if I ask a question. It's like one flash for yes, and they don't flash the lights if it's a no, which is amazing. And energetically, I'm sensing things as well, which I think is something that's quite important to point out for people, that if they feel a bit weird, that their team might be helping to, the word I was given is recalibrate by my team. We're recalibrating you. We're kind of bringing online some stuff that's been dormant for a very long time, back to the Atlantean times. And that can feel a bit strange for me. Sometimes my ears will start ringing. I think, okay, they're needing to come into my energy. And then I shut my eyes and I feel like I'm rushing through space. It's a difficult thing to describe. You feel like your consciousness is moving somewhere, but you're not physically going anywhere. And I feel like that a lot, particularly at night. They seem to do a lot of work on my energy field at night, probably because that's the only time I'm still. So again, for other people who are getting weird sensations in the head, pressure in the ears, feeling like your consciousness is moving somewhere, that could be your guides and your higher self working on your energy field as well. So I don't know if you guys are experiencing anything similar.
Yeah, definitely. And at night, do you get that like surge through your body that like wakes you up? It almost, like when it first started happening, I thought, okay, is this a physical issue or is this an ascension issue? Because like you were talking about, you call it the quickening. I really resonate with that because I feel like timelines are, like things will happen, but then I realize they haven't happened. And then all of a sudden somebody's talking about it like it happened. That is very like off-putting for me sometimes. So it's exciting to listen to what you're saying today.
Yeah, definitely. The energy surges, I love them. And they do feel like it's like electricity. It's like someone's plugged you in. And it's so hard to describe how it feels unless you're there, but it's very tangible. It's very physical at the time. And I've had that wake me up in the night, and I've freaked out a little bit initially, but then I got used to it. And then I spoke to my guides about it, and it's like, it's okay. It's always us. Well, don't worry, it's no one else. It's always us. But we're going to have to do this quite a lot. So, that's why they all flash the lights or make a sound in the house, so I know it's them about to do something. But yeah, it does feel a little strange when you're not used to it, and the shifting in the parallel versions of reality as well. It's like quite often I'll know something's about to happen just before it happens, but it's not a premonition of something weeks in advance. It's just an hour, but I just know. I know I'm gonna bump into somebody in town that I haven't seen for 3 years, and I know I'm going to bump into them. I bump into them, and I think, well, there you go. And the numbers, every day it's like, wow, this used to happen once a month and it's happening constantly now.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So I'll be the different one and tell you that I've had a lot of old, like, repeating thought patterns that have come up, and I know what's happening. I know that I'm observing them. I know that exciting things are coming, but I've been very anxious. I don't know if it's because, it's that feeling that it's the excitement, but anxiety, and they kind of feel the same. And like you said, we've never been here before. We're going somewhere we've never been. So I don't know if some of that anxiety is coming from the unknown. Just like you guys, I've been experiencing lots and lots of signs in many different ways. I notice the animals are more prevalent, and ringing in the ears. I know there's a lot of healing. I've had many experiences. I know that healing's coming, but at the same time, it's that, for me, it's the excitement and anxiety that feel the same. And trying to deal with, I know it's excitement, but yet I'm anxious at the same time. So that's kind of, I'm very grateful you were all peaceful, but for me, it feels more like almost like anxiety, but knowing what I know that it's also very exciting, because I know there's something so incredibly wonderful coming. I know there's so much more light, and we're trying to hold on to light that we've never held on to before, or an amount that we've never held on to before. So it's that almost like, the double edge. I don't want to call it the sword, but black and white. Like, I know what's going on, but yet my body and my brain haven't quite caught up. So it feels very anxious for me. I'm ready for it, but it's not coming. And so I for some reason, that's kind of what I'm going through at the moment.
I love how you've said that, because that's exactly as I've been experiencing when I get those moments of anxiety. And they used to take over a bit, and I would listen to my mind sort of freaking out. And it made it quite an uncomfortable experience. I've kind of got used to that now. So when the energy starts to change around me, my body and my brain reacts to it in a negative way, exactly the same. And I've now had to start to talk to my body and talk to my heart, which is absolutely racing when I feel these energetic changes, and talk to my mind as if I'm separate to them, just to say, it's okay. It's our guides. You're safe. And I have to really work through that, because my body's instinct is to panic. And I go into fight or flight, and I get this sense of anxiety right in the center of the heart. So I have to do the same thing, just calm it down, because they haven't quite caught up. They're not quite aware that, no, actually we're okay. And it's a normal human reaction to something that is unseen, and the unseen has always been quite scary for us.
Yeah, absolutely. I find myself talking to myself a lot, saying, no, these are old patterns of thinking. Like, we are not going into doubt or fear. I know better. But yeah, it's like a constant having to talk to yourself. Like, we need to catch up here.
Yeah, and I think it will catch up. It's an instinct, isn't it? It's the human body reacting to anything that it's not familiar with. And the ego particularly doesn't like to not know what's happening. And the ego doesn't like to not be in control. And when the spirit guides come in and work on our energy field, the ego's like, well, hang on a minute. I should be in charge here. And the ego is never in charge, always the soul. So I talking to myself as if I'm almost talking to a child, like really calm, really nurturing. It does have an impact quite quickly, and my body calms down then. But yeah, it's like it's a couple of steps behind.
Yeah. And Lori, what you were saying about holding more light, I've been hearing a lot about how we are anchoring light now into the earth to help, we're like, each one of us is very important part to anchor that light, to bring out the energy that's changing on the earth, and just throughout all the grids and the ley lines on the earth, and just wherever you are, you bring in that light and you ground it. And I think that's an important part of the ascension process as well. It's just a natural, I wouldn't say byproduct, but a very essential role is that what we're playing, doing that. Yeah.
And I think the more we see the opposite of the light, shall we call it, happening on the planet, there is a tendency to panic, react, get angry, get upset, feel despair, feel hopeless. And we've got to recognize when that starts to play out, and as quickly as possible come back into the heart space and bring that light in, because we are contributing energetically to the planet with every emotion we have, with every thought we have. And so living in fear actually is harmful not only to us but to everything. But we're so programmed in fear that we're having to really undo all of that. And it's a constant adjustment, just like an aeroplane when it travels to its destination. Apparently, I've heard is constantly slightly off route, and the autopilot keeps putting it back on route, and then it goes slightly off, and then it pushes it back. And that's what we need to keep doing, is just making these little tweaks and adjustments to come back to being a space holder for the light to come through us and to anchor that through our physical body into the earth. But it's not something we can just click our fingers and it happens every day. It's a constant adjustment. And also we have to be kind to ourselves when we do go slightly off track and we react, because that's our human nature sometimes. But it's learning, okay, that's not a helpful response. It's not helpful for me. It's not healthy for me. So I'm going to come back to a space of love. And if that means I have to ignore something, move away from certain friendships, stop hanging out in certain circles, stop reading newspapers, which I did many years ago, is do whatever it takes to get you back into that heart space. And that might mean cutting stuff out of your life.
Yeah, that's important. I noticed that in this, around of people, I see the energy of doubt coming up a lot with everything that's going on, and then in our personal lives, it really is pushing us to doubt, and we're having to hold that faith. But I do see a lot of, what's going on, that people are starting to doubt that, where people have been like, this is coming, we're moving in the right direction, that suddenly they feel like we aren't. And it really is, we really do have to keep the faith that, like you said in the beginning, this is the shadow stuff coming up. This doesn't mean we're not moving in the right direction. We are because we're seeing all of this is actually a sign we're moving in the right direction, because it's coming up to be cleared so that we can get past all of this. But I do see that, and again, talking to myself, there's been my own doubts that have come up, and I've just, hold the faith. We are moving in the right direction.
So, Melanie, I have a question for you. I've been noticing a lot of different messaging coming from everywhere. We see it online, it comes in through us, which I feel is the most genuine. But what I'm starting to see is a lot of these people that are coming in, and channelers and, this and that. There are some that are bringing the same message, but they have that underlying state of fear to them that, instead of, that we have to be careful of what we say with what we know about all of the chaotic negative things that are happening in the world, because we might get shut down. And to me, that doesn't resonate as real, genuine, loving messages, but it gets confusing because their message, I believe, is on track with the Ascension, but the underlying tone of it feels quite negative to me. Do you have anything to add to that for us?
Yeah, it's interesting because I had a big part of my awakening at the end of last year, where I had heard things and read things that seemed to be coming from kind of spiritual sources, but left me feeling fearful myself. And again, this kind of fear of persecution, or we mustn't say this, we mustn't say that. I think that's coming from ego and not from a higher source, because the higher source that I connect with, my higher self, has never ever told me anything that is instilled any sense of fear in me. In fact, quite the opposite. I've been confirming things with my higher self, and so many things are not true. So many beliefs that we've got and thoughts that we have are not true. We're creating our own fear with our thoughts, and then we're being programmed by other people's. And so any message that has an underlying sense of fear, or anything that makes me react physically and I feel uncomfortable, I shut down. And that's not to say that those people, they've got the right to have their own opinions, but we don't need to be spreading any more fear-based messages. We've done that for centuries. We're trying to spread love-based messages, and there is nothing to fear. And this is a very strong message I've had from my higher self. There is absolutely nothing to be fearful of ever. There's nothing wrong. And when I hear a message and I think I'm not sure about that, that uncertainty about the message is my intuition saying that's not a message for you. And that's okay. You don't need to get cross about it. You just disregard it. You just let it go. And if you want an answer, come to me, and I go to my higher self. And every answer I get from my higher self is full of love. It's full of hope and optimism. My higher self has never warned me about anything and never says you've got to be careful, because even that language is very human. Or be careful of this. That doesn't come from a higher source. That comes from fear. And our language is full of fear-based words and phrases. And I don't know, certainly here in the UK, a lot of things that we say are steeped in fear. Be careful of this, watch out for that. You know, you better not do that. And I've just really noticed how much negative programming we've got. And that doesn't stop with the channel. Sometimes that's still there, and it's the human part of them. It's not coming from spirit.
Thank you. I love that answer. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, me too. Thank you very much for that point. And I think you've made the point about going to your higher self, and that so many times you hear from your guides, you know, you don't need to go to outside sources as much as you think. You have everything within you, within your higher self. And I agree with you. Like, I've never received guidance that's fear-based from my higher self. But to Kim's point, when you do hear that, you can trust your intuition or your contraction in your body, or, you know, your gut reaction is always spot on, and it's there for our protection and guidance. So thank you for your point. That was really well said.
Oh, thank you. You're welcome. And I love the inner guidance. For me, it's like a sat nav. It's like my body feels like the vehicle, and my soul is the sat nav. It's leading me to where I need to go. I just need to take the physical steps and follow it. And our bodies really do let us know what's going on. And it's you know, if there's any reaction to anything, whether that's making a decision or listening to a person or reading a book, even if it seems to have come from a higher source, I just straight away tune into that and think, okay, I'm going to stop that now. I'm not going to be curious and carry on reading it and frighten myself and then stop it, which I used to do out of curiosity. Now I just think, no, it doesn't resonate, ditch it, find something that does.
Yeah, I think it's a big lesson that we don't, it's a lesson in us loving ourselves and trusting ourselves, which is something we haven't done. We've always looked outside of ourselves, whether it's to teachers or governments or, you know, anything like parents. We're always looking for somebody else to tell us what's right and wrong or what's valid or the truth. We're always looking for somebody else. And I think this is a big lesson in us trusting ourselves, which we have a difficult time doing because we've never been taught to do that, right? We've always been taught to believe the experts. So I think it's also exciting that we get to do that and learn to love and trust ourselves fully. And I think we definitely need to do that. Like you guys said, I think coming and listening to our own higher source is the direction we need to move forward in.
And I do see a future where we don't need books anymore unless we want to read them. We don't need to look on the internet. We just all have all of our resources internally. I really do hope that comes to fruition. And I enjoy teaching people to connect with their own higher selves rather than listening to me necessarily. Like you can do this for yourself. And I do feel like that's going to come online more and more as people learn that, I mean, the amount of knowledge we've got access to within ourselves is absolutely incredible. We just need a little bit of guidance to understand how to access it. And then the big thing is trusting it and also determining what's coming from your higher self and what's you. And I've got to know that because my voice is louder for a start, and can be fear-based. So I learned, okay, if it's fear-based, that's definitely me. If it sounds really loving, like it's coming from a really loving aunt or something, that's definitely my higher self. And again, that just takes a little bit of practice.
Yeah, I love the practice idea with that, because I know what you mean by that. And I love how you said your voice is louder. Because it does make it easier to figure out where is this really coming from. And so that's a very good tip. Do you want to discuss, and again, I don't want it to come from a fearful place, but I know a lot of people have been complaining about all these different physical reactions that they're having, and they're not sure if, they're the ascension or just, physical things, or, whatever is happening in the world today, whether that's affecting people. So, because I find that it's very easy to get caught up in thinking every single thing that you're experiencing physically is part of the ascension. And so I'm just going to ask you your thoughts on that.
It's really tricky, isn't it? Because if you go online, and I wouldn't look at Google and type in a symptom, you've got everything wrong with you. And I'm noticing it's even harder to differentiate when, I'm in perimenopause now, and so many symptoms can be allocated to that. But many of those symptoms are also, I know, part of my awakening. And I just think, well, it's so confusing. What's causing what? Do I need to do anything with it? Or is this just an ascension symptom? And I think that's the bit that people will struggle with is, do I need to take action? Do I need a doctor? Or is this ascension related? And I think if anyone's worried, their first port of call should be to get some support and some guidance from a doctor or a herbalist or a nutritionist. But if something can't be established, if there's a strange ache or a pain that you can't put your finger on and it's not proven to be anything, then it is always worth bearing in mind that it could be ascension related, because there's some strange things coming up, particularly if it's an old pain that comes from years ago. And sometimes it can come from stored trauma in the body as well. We can get aches and pains in a certain area of the body, and we'll have a big release of emotion, and the physical pain goes as well. So that's when you might think, my bad back has suddenly gone, and yet I've just spent the last 3 days crying because we've been shifting something. People have been telling me about headaches. They're having pain around the eyes. People might get pain in one of the chakras. So it could be really anything. But yeah, I think if it's concerning, I would always recommend getting some advice. If it's not concerning and if it's not really impacting your life, it could be ascension related. And I would tap in to your intuition to just sit with the pain and ask the pain, talk to your body. Your body's an entity, just like anything, and ask it, is this ascension related, or is it something that I need to take some action on? And the action might just be a call to the doctor. And if you don't hear anything back, it might just be something that will pass.
Thank you.
So for people that might not understand how the ascension process can affect their body, could you just explain that a little bit deeper?
Yeah, I mean, it can affect everything. So as our vibration is increasing, we're able to access high levels of consciousness. This is what people are calling like a 5D shift, because we're moving into a space of fifth dimensional consciousness, which basically just means a higher state of consciousness whilst being embodied in the physical. And as we're shifting, it's having a physical impact on our body, because everything is shifting up a gear. So it can cause physical aches and pains and some discomfort, because our body is being changed. Our actual human template, from what I understand, is being changed. Many years ago, we had 12 strands of DNA, as I understand it, and this was adjusted. And there's different reasons for why that adjustment happened. And there might be truth in more than one reason, from what I understand from my higher self. That's being sort of put back online now. So our DNA is literally changing and is shifting and is expanding. So that's going to cause some impact physically, but that's quite unique to the person. So if the person has a history of headaches, they might get worse whilst in this period of ascension. If somebody has aches and pains in their joints, that might get worse. So it depends on the physical body, but sometimes it can feel like your body's expanding. Like with me, it feels like my brain is trying to burst out of my head some days. I get really bad headaches, which I don't normally get. So I've put that down to the Ascension, and I just drink some water and rest. So yeah, it's unique to the individual, but it could be something that you've had in the past that either comes back or something that you normally have that is exacerbated and feels worse.
The other day I had to take a nap.
Me too.
I know. I think I'm usually pretty good, but and there's nothing wrong. Others naps are good, but for me, that was unusual. I loved it. So trust what comes up.
Yeah, I think that's so true.
Yeah.
So like you said, that knowledge was moving forward and we're going to just know things, right? Because it's our own wisdom coming online. I also have noticed lately when we're talking about physical ailments that I very much hope and have heard that our healing, our medical field will be changing, which I very much hope so. And recently I've gone through some medical things and really sitting back and observing the whole journey that I've just been through, becoming allergic to the medicine they put me on to help the symptoms I was having, to hear them say that my only option were these injections, but the side effects was cancer and heart attack. Like I just really am looking at the fact that this system doesn't work. And there are, like you said, there are pluses to it. Like, I had an infection that only, I needed the medication in order to get over. But that there's going to be a new healing. There's going to be a new form of us knowing that we can heal ourselves, and that coming online. And I pray every day that that's the direction we're going in, and can't wait for those things to change. But it was listening to myself too, like you said. Like I knew at one point I needed this information that I was going to get from the doctor, and at some point I realized I have that information. Now I have to put that aside, and I know what direction I need to go moving forward, and it's not that direction. So, it's being that observer and listening to ourselves, and trusting that you do know your body, and talking to my body and listening, and then being shown the signs and the directions that I need to go from there was pretty magical to me and exciting. And I wish that for everybody. Have you heard of any things that we're moving forward in as far as the health, our own health and healing?
I think that what I'm noticing, the more people I speak to, myself included, actually, many people are now turning to herbal medicine. Many people are turning to complementary medicine, natural ways of healing, more than I've ever noticed before, certainly in more recent times. And I think that comes from a frustration potentially in the UK of not really having access to medical resources as much as we used to because of the demand that's being placed on the system, and that system not being able to cope with that demand. But also, myself included, I think we are affected more by herbal medicine, natural medicine, complementary medicine than we were before because of our vibration increasing. I think as we are shifting and getting higher in vibration, these subtle energy medicines and working with the earth is having a stronger impact. So whereas 10 years ago we might have tried a herbal remedy, it didn't work, we went to the doctors, we were given some pills and that worked. That's because our body was lower in vibration at that time and was more likely to respond to the medicine that potentially was slightly lower in vibration as well. As we are becoming higher in our own vibration, we are reacting more and having a better impact with these more subtle energy medicines. Maybe that's Reiki, maybe that's acupuncture or EFT tapping, or we take herbal remedies. I think they are having a stronger impact because of where we're at now. So I would also recommend to somebody, if you tried something 10 years ago and it didn't work for you, and it's a slightly more natural healing method, maybe revisit it now, because you are not the same person you were 10 years ago. Your body isn't the same. And so these different methods of healing may be more impactful. So try them again now in 2025.
I
Yeah,
love that. That's
yeah, I love that too. I think it's pretty incredible that you talked about the vibration when it comes to that, because, I've experienced quite a few physical, I deal with horses. So that comes with fixing the things around the horses come with the physical pain as well, not just the horse itself. But so I've had to really work on a lot of self healing because I was raised a Christian Scientist, so I didn't have availability to go to the doctors. Which I'm very grateful for now because it has really taught me. And what I've learned is that as you raise your vibration to a point of where it's at the highest for you, illness and pain can't live there. It can't be there. And so for me, that's been a really beneficial thing to understand and to learn and to experience so that I can share that with my clients and my children and, all of that kind of stuff. So I do agree with you that the vibrational frequency change has allowed us to, because I do believe we co-created all of these herbs and the land and the trees and everything else. And when you start to research it, pretty much everything out there will either kill you or cure you. And it's more cure than kill. So, it's a pretty amazing, facility that we have, this earth. So, I think that's really interesting that you brought that up.
Yeah. I mean, our ancestors survived for a very long time without having what we've got today. And they didn't have some of the illnesses and diseases that we have today. Okay, some of the issues they had and the things they suffered with equally we don't get, and everything shifts and changes. And I think that, the systems we've had have worked for us at the time according to our vibration, but they're not working for us now. And this is where this shift comes in, because everything has to change because we are literally vibrating differently than we used to. And I really like what you said about the fact that when you are in your highest vibration and you feel wonderful, pain can't touch you, because you don't even, if you've got a pain, you wouldn't even be aware of it because you're on cloud nine. It can't affect you. And I think that's important when we're feeling poorly. Is the first thing to do is call your guides in, get some crystals if you want to, lay down, balance your energy, balance your chakras, and notice the difference when you've done that, even for 20 minutes, on how your body feels afterwards, because that can just shift you out of pain enough to be able to get up and feel okay and feel better than you did.
Right. Yes. Thank you.
and we all work with herbs, the three of us as well. So I love that you brought that up, and it's fun to just even have your own herb garden and go out and pick fresh herbs to use, and also trying to eat more high vibrational foods is also important. Just noticing what how your body reacts and to those vibrational assists, I guess.
Yeah,
So
I
thank you
love
for
working
that.
with nature like that. Oh, you're welcome. I get so excited by it because I've got a herb garden here as well in my garden. So I've got a drying rack and loads of them drying at the moment for making teas and all sorts of things. So and it's having more of an impact on me now than it did when I first started drinking herbal tea, for example, a few years ago. Was quite nice. It didn't really impact me much. Whereas now I have different teas for different things, and I really notice the change. So now I love them now. I have them multiple cups every day.
That's great.
This has been a wonderful conversation. Does anyone have anything to add?
No, I
Melanie,
just
do
would
you?
like to say, we talked about change, and so many things are changing right now. And we're so resistant to change. We're, taught safety is staying the same, right? So can you give some advice to people who are having a really difficult time with change right now?
Yeah, of course. And to be fair, I have as well. So much as I understand what's happening, my body, my ego has reacted in fear to some of this. So I don't want anyone to think that it's just them, because it really isn't. And it is human nature to react sometimes to change, because we're moving into a time that we've never been in before. what's really important, and you mentioned it earlier, is that word faith. Is just to really keep the faith that we are going to end up better off. We're not going to end up worse off. This isn't a descension. This is an ascension. We are moving up. But we're having to shake off the old stuff. That's why it feels so uncomfortable. So it's not that we're getting worse. And I think sometimes that's where the mind gets confused and thinks, well, if we're ascending, why do I feel so terrible? But that's when you've really got to sort of go with the flow and understand that the stuff that you're feeling, try not to identify with it too much and try and attach a story to why you're feeling so bad, because you're just prolonging it. If you can just relax with it and let it move through you, even if that's intense fear, even if that's an impending sense of doom, which I suffered quite a lot from in the early part of the year, I recognized it, I acknowledged it. Okay, my body's feeling this. I'm just going to let it move through me, because once that's moved through me, I feel good again. And then it's just reminding yourself, write it down, stick it on your fridge, put it by your bed. All of this stuff will pass and we're going to end up better because of it, because the ego forgets that. And it's easy to think about it in a positive way when you're in a high vibration. Sometimes life challenges drop our vibration a little bit because we react to them. When we're in that low state, it's very difficult to think logically and we can very easily get into despair. That's when you need that little note to remind you. I've got them stuck all over the house with a picture of an owl, which is my reminder to contact my higher self, because that's how I see my higher self represented. It's just that little reminder that it is going to get better and it's all for the greater good, and keep going, because we're all going through this. And at least we've got the awareness of why it's happening rather than going into it blind. So much as it's the unknown, at least we've got a little bit of knowledge behind it, which is very comforting.
That was amazing the way you described that. Very, very important message, very important point. Thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome.
Very encouraging. And I'm going to get some Post-it notes too. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I use that too. I have blackboards with little sayings on them in different places. And, and when I find my grandson who lives with me struggling, I usually, because, he doesn't want to listen to me directly. So I will put a little saying thinking he's never going to even bother to look at it, but he always does. So, yeah.
I love that.
It's been great meeting you in, well, not person, but on computer, because I watched your last episode with The Next Perfect Step, and it was very fascinating and interesting. So this has been a pleasure for me to see you face to face and talk to you.
Yes.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. Pleasure's all mine.
Are there any last words of advice or anything, words of wisdom that we'd like to say before we end?
I love all these little pearls that Melanie's been sharing with us. So thank you.
Yes, very important topic. Very important topic. Well, if you've enjoyed this episode as much as we have, please like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, how is your intuition leading you to the next perfect step?